Hey, everybody, welcome to Bariatric, the podcast. And last time I ended by saying my next podcast, I was going to have one of my very best bariatric buddies on with me. So, who are you guessing it is? Hmm, maybe you're thinking it's Laura Preston, or maybe you're thinking it's Tabitha, or maybe it's Mel and Kelly. No, 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 and no. So without further ado, there he is. It's my buddy Rob D'Amedio. Hi, friend.
Hey Connie, thanks so much for having me on.
It's been a while, huh?
It has been a minute. We're almost close to like a year since we've gotten on
Stop
and
it.
done this.
Stop it. Because I've only known you for a year.
I know. And I look at that like I still remember when you emailed me. I thought it was a prank. I really thought
Oh my
someone else
goodness.
because I always listen to your books and people know that I look at you as a hero. So it was like one of those where I went to a couple members of my community thinking, I don't know if this is actually Connie. I actually had to go to Kelly and Mel and be like, is this her email? And then they were like, no, that's her. And I couldn't believe that you emailed me. So it's
That's
blossomed into such an
hysterical.
awesome year, though.
It has. And we had an instant friendship.
Yes.
When you were on the podcast last time, it was like we laughed and had so much fun. And then we've kept in touch, and you guys came to my house and we did some recording for some different things. And that was even more fun. And then we've just kept in touch. And I was sad because I didn't get to go to the JBY Awards this year. And I am super, super sad because you were the rock star.
I never know how well I do at those things. You just really try your best. I always joke like I'm funny, but I'm bariatrically funny. Like I'm funny for the bariatric community. But if you put me up against actual funny people, I'm probably a mid or lower level sense of humor. So, but it was
Well,
an awesome time, and Kelly and Mel did such a great job on
they
that.
did. Really, what those two have put together is freaking amazing too. So, and what you have done this past year is amazing. We have
I
all these things to talk about.
I know. Where do you want to start?
Well, first I'm going to tease people and tell them we're going to do a little. We got some hot gossip for them tonight, buddy. We're going to be talking about the harshest person in bariatric community in a little bit. But I first want to catch up on what you've been doing because you've really been a lot of places this year. You've done a lot of things. And I will say, if people don't know you yet, I don't know how that's possible if they're on social media at all. But here's how I decided I needed to have you on my show, on the podcast last year, because you won a lot of awards at that JBY award
I
show
did.
last year.
I did.
And I just kept listening to you. And when I heard you, I knew nothing about you, nothing, never heard your name. But you would get up there and you would talk with such sincerity and so much genuineness. And you talked about your family and your children and your wife. And I was like, this is my kind of guy.
Yeah, I think it's one of those. We get so tied up in social media, and it's one of those that you see these big followings. I always joke I'm like the friendly neighborhood VSG man. Like I'm a smaller account. I never know if anyone's actually paying attention to me. And I really just went because I wanted to see everyone else on the internet in real life. And it was just an amazing whirlwind. From there, it was just a lot.
Tell me how you got started with your social media posting to begin with. I didn't even ask you that before.
So so this is like something I don't really talk about too much, but I was not going to tell anyone I was going to have bariatric surgery. I was going to be that person who just got it done. I'm a teacher. I was going to get it done like June 1st, say that like I
Sure.
worked out all summer and just let the weight fall off. And my wife and my therapist always, shout out to all the good therapists out there, really said like if you're going to live this lie, do you really want to change your life and have it be built on a lie? And my wife said that. My therapist then reset it. I shared the same therapist as my wife, so maybe that had something to do with it. But it became for me a lot of I wanted to have a separate account for my personal stuff because I really didn't know if I was going to be a success or a failure.
Oh, wow.
with this. And even today, I don't know if I'm really a success or a failure. And that's the struggle we constantly deal with, is knowing if we're good enough. But it became one of those, I started as an accountability point. As I
Okay.
started, I'd follow other accounts, so I would have a hyper specific view into it. And it really caused this really awesome thing where, because I had two accounts, I had my personal account and the weight loss account. When I was in the weight loss account, I'd always come out feeling like almost inspired. Like, I'd see other men lifting weights after surgery, I'd see women showing how to plan meals or get movement in with everything. Like, there were so many inspiring accounts in the community. And then, like, when I would switch over to my personal account, I would see my friends, but then I realized, like, I follow a lot of like unhealthy cooking accounts, or I follow a lot of restaurants, and it's,
Sure. Oh, wow.
yeah, yeah. So it was like almost realizing, like, in the next level of, oh wow, I no wonder I'm always hungry. No wonder I always want to go to a next restaurant. I'm being bombarded with advertisements to get this all together, and yeah. So it was one of those that, like, I slowly started posting like how I would lose weight, and then I started with a step goal. I went like 400 and some odd days of hitting 15,000 steps a day, and that really,
Wow.
yeah,
How many
yeah.
miles is that?
You know, I always forget it. If only there was a machine we were on that I could put those numbers in. But
Yeah. It's like over 5 miles, right?
yeah, give or
Yeah.
take. So
Okay. So how many days did you do that?
over 400. I think the exact
Wow.
count was I want to say like actually no, I think it was like 385. Some I'd have
That's
to check the number.
amazing.
Yeah, the only thing that stopped me is I had a hernia, and even then I did it in true man fashion. I did it for like 3 weeks with the hernia, convinced that like I was
Lord.
just sore. And then when I finally went for like the doctor's appointment, they're like, no, your insides are on your outside, and they pushed it
Well,
back in. Yeah,
well,
yeah. That might have been a
yes.
sign that I have to take a little bit of a break in recovery.
Oh my gosh, that is impressive. So that's how you got started.
Yeah.
Did you know all those people were following you?
No. No. Well, because you see the count, and like one of the things that I don't think we talk about enough is, like, you make this account, you start to do things, you get a couple people to follow, and then it was like I started men's support because I would ask the other men in the community for advice because there
Yeah,
weren't many people out there.
yeah.
And that's where it really started to take off. And then it was one of those of, like, it was almost like Field of Dreams. If you build it, they would come. Like,
Mm.
I would see all these random accounts coming through men's support or messaging me afterwards, and it
Oh,
was a lot of
wow.
people like me, where it was people who didn't necessarily want a full public weight loss account, but they were looking for help and advice and support. And that's why I continue to do Men's Support Monday, was just sharing things on meal prep, how to meal plan. I'd have dietitians on, surgeons, what to prepare for when you're ready. And it just blossomed into this really awesome thing.
Isn't that wild? And
It
how
is.
long ago did you start your social media?
So I'm 3.5 years post-op. So like 4 years ago. I'm coming up on like 4 years of my account. So
Wow, that is so cool. So you go to JBY last year, which was the first one,
yeah.
and you didn't know you were winning these awards?
I no, well, it's when I was up against some of the great people that were there, I got to meet them, and I followed them and known them. There were 50K accounts, quarter million accounts, 100K accounts. Then there's like my little itty bitty account, and it was one of those that my friend Nikki, who again I met from the internet, had to push me out of the chair when I won because I couldn't believe, I thought they were going to call the other Rob when they said Rob won, and then they said my weight is history, and I was like, they had to have had a typo. So
Oh my goodness. Look
it,
at you. You didn't think it was me emailing you. You didn't think it was you, Rob, who won.
well, and I think it comes to a lot of, like, I struggle with a lot of self doubt on a lot of these
Yeah.
things, and
Yeah.
even like in everything I do, I second guess myself. I always, I don't want to give the spoiler alert, but like, I'm a very harsh critic of myself in a lot of the
Yeah.
senses, and between
Yeah.
imposter syndrome and self-esteem from being a bigger person, it's something I have to constantly work on when I do these things.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get right to the meat of it.
Yeah.
Let's let's bust ourselves out of this, right? The harshest person in the bariatric community. Is it me or you?
It's the answer is it's me. Well, we could both say it at the
That's
same
right.
time, but like,
Exactly.
and I
Yes.
think especially from coaching clients, I think a lot of the times, from my end of it, you realize that we are our own harshest critics, and a lot of the times we compare ourselves to people who have different lifestyles, different expectations, or different results, and it can be our own worst enemy in our journey after bariatric surgery.
That is so, so, so true. So you and I had a really great conversation the other day. And one of the things that I value about our friendship is that, we talk vulnerable, right? We
Yes.
share with each other some of our vulnerabilities. And, it's it, it ebbs and flows, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you're like, okay, this is all good. And then something happens and you're like, ugh.
And
Yeah.
I think one of the most beautiful things we talked about was like you're at the top of the game. You've literally written the book on bariatric surgery, and if you can feel the highs and the lows of social media, that means everyone's susceptible. Being at bariatric retreat, a lot of people are like, "Well, how do you do all this?" And it's like, I don't know. Like, I'm just as scared in my room as I am every other part of this, uh, with having to meet people or deal with these things. So.
Let's go down that road just a little bit. So when they talk about how do you do all these things, what are some of these, all of these things?
I had a whirlwind year. We got to work together at WLSFA. I got to work with you on a couple projects. I was already doing men's support in Barry Nation and have been invited to do other men's supports and speaking engagements. Penn did a feature on me, my surgery center, of me
Nice.
transforming and becoming a personal trainer. Yeah, and even hosting the award show with Kelly and Mel. It's I joke it's an embarrassment of riches, but a lot of the times I really struggle with why are they picking me or why are we developing anything with me?
Okay. And so if you were able to get outside of yourself and people and you were a fly on the wall and people said, you know, Rob's doing a lot of things. What do you think? Why do you think people are picking Rob? What answers would you hear from people? Because you know in your heart of hearts.
I think I think really if it comes down to anything, it's just that I'm hardworking and consistent and I can be reliable. So it's one of those things that I'd say like I don't do anything extraordinary. I do a lot of ordinary things very consistently, and because of that, it's like I'm kind of like the McDonald's, I guess, in the men's community. You know what you're getting almost every time with me.
Okay, that's a good analogy, but I'll tell you something. Those are wonderful traits, and those things I believe, and I think that research supports all of that, is that people who are consistent and who are willing to go and you do a lot of ordinary things, but you show up every time. You're going to be there. You're going to be the same person. You're not duplicitous. Um, so those are the uh, hardwire or the hard drive things you do. But let's talk about what it is about Rob that people are picking you for. And one of the things I just said is you're not duplicitous. You are the same person in all situations.
Got it. I am so glad that you kind of explained that as you went because I was going to go Philly on you and be like, look, I don't know what that word means, so I'm going to take it as disrespectful. So,
Well, you know what? I didn't know that word either until I read Stephen Covey, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And I'm
mhm.
like, dang, that's a great word. It means showing up as the same person you are in every situation,
And
right?
that's the goal is just to try to do that and, be the same person wherever I am and wherever I walk.
I just gave the wrong definition. That's not duplicitous. Duplicitous is when you don't show up as the same person. It's like having double, in this
Boom.
situation, you're like Mr. Nice Guy. In this situation, you're Mr. Jerk or whatever it happens to be. But you are not duplicitous. You are the
Got it.
same person.
So I
And
was right. If you call me duplicitous, then I do take it as disrespect.
that's right.
So
Take it with great disrespect.
some people are going to sign on for this thinking they're getting like the tea of the bariatric community. Others are thinking they're getting a therapy session. Really, we're doing a vocab lesson. So
Yeah, we're
this
preparing for the what do we have to take in high school? You know, what is that test everybody takes to get out of high school and into
SATs,
college? Yeah, that thing.
SATs.
Oh, I'm not a test taker, Rob, but anywho, I would not have known duplicitous when I took the SAT.
Yeah,
Anyway,
it's a tough one.
so other personal characteristics about Rob. What would people say?
You know, wow, these are the tough ones. I'd hope they think that I'm consistent. You know, we said that. I try to be as genuine as possible. You know, I always joke like I hope people like know that I work my tail off for this. I try to show people that like, look, you know, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm doing all these things, and you know, like I have to use almost every hour of the day. Like we're looking at this. I was up at 5 a.m. on the treadmill. I then taught a full day of class. I come home. I help get my kids on their gymnastics routine and dance and field hockey and everything else. And then we make dinner. And then I do coaching calls. So it's like then when people are like, hey, when do you want to record a podcast? It's like I have 9 p.m. on Tuesdays and
Right,
Wednesdays. And those are the two spots. And they
right.
fill up, which is
Yep,
always amazing.
yep. I mean, yes, it is 9. We started this at 9 p.m., you know,
Yes.
and yeah, it's just what we do. And I think another thing about you, Rob, I agree with all of those things you said. I think one of the things that I see in you is that you want to genuinely give other people a hand to take that next step, to do more, to stay in the game, to see the results.
Yeah, I mean, I joke. I was very blessed. The bariatric community is probably one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Mhm.
I would reach out and ask questions, and I almost always got them answered. Whether it was a big account, a little account, I used to bother some of the best people in this community. But it would be one like if you go out and you ask the questions, like people are willing to help. And it's one of those things that as I evolved from bariatric patient and kind of went into maintenance, I really wanted to give back and try to support a community that really helped grow and raise me and make me a better person.
Yes, exactly, which is honestly how I got into my career because I had done years and years of therapy because I had all these issues. And so
Yeah.
as my life changed and I saw that, and like you, right? As your life changed and you saw how amazing life can actually be. I wanted other people to experience that. And if I could be a hand in that direction or help somebody move in that direction, that's what I wanted to do. And this is the way that I found to do that. And your way has been through social media and a new business you have. So tell us about this business.
Yeah, so you know, one of the best things that happened to me was falling back in love with fitness after like taking a 10-year hiatus. And just really learning how to move my body and develop and weightlift and get back into finding joy in movement. And I realized like there's a need in our community to do that. When I looked at coaching programs or I try to find coaching programs, they didn't necessarily know how to manage the nutrition aspect of it. Or like their fitness programs were kind of built like when I was obese, you know, and I'd try to hire a personal trainer at like 365 pounds. They'd want me doing burpees on like day two. And it's like, look, I'm barely getting in and out of a chair, and you want me to
Exactly.
do this extreme level. Yeah. So it was one of those like we go back to talking about sometimes the best people who work are the people who've worked through it themselves.
Yep.
Um, Really just helping clients understand that like look, you can get results by just consistently hitting your step goal and working on water and nutrition and let the weight come down naturally with surgery and doing all the work so that eventually you do get into the gym. And um, I try to offer a big one-to-one support with everyone that I can. So a lot of programs, and I don't want to knock it, but a lot of programs, they send you like a recording each week, and that's all you get. And one of the things I wanted to do is like, I feel like, especially in the bariatric community, we're talkers, but also we kind of need to like feel safe and comfortable
For
to
sure.
talk out. So it's one of those like, I offer Zoom calls with my clients. We have a community call every week. Where we go over topics and things that come up in the bariatric community and how to really just plan and have a goal for it.
I love that because when you're talking about fitness and movement after bariatric surgery, there's so many things that bring out a lot of vulnerability in people. You know, just getting out in public for some people is a big, big deal. And then starting a movement or exercise program when maybe you haven't done anything, like you said, 10 years. Some people, it's been never.
Yeah.
And so you need to trust the person that you're working with. And having somebody like you who is genuine and compassionate and willing to listen and willing to be there face to face. What a safe place to begin that part of the journey.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm proudest of is the community that I have in there and the clients that I work with. They know it's a safe place. They know they can be vulnerable with me. We cover a lot of stuff just of in your bariatric journey through fitness. But the best thing ever is like I'm always proudest of like we were at the retreat and I had clients who never in a million years thought they could do a pull up, and I was teaching them how to do assisted pull ups. And next thing you know, because one person did a pull up, we then kind of did like, well, how about the next person, then the next person, and we had 5 or 6 people doing pull ups.
Wow.
Getting to work with people, I've gotten them to, leg press twice their body weight, or I've had clients that are squatting the weight of their husbands. And it, yeah,
I
yeah.
love that.
I think it's phenomenal because a lot of the times, clients, they want to like have a relative term of how am I doing, or they limit themselves with thinking I can only do light weights. And I really do challenge to get them to progress heavily in the weights. It helps them build muscle. It gives them the definition that they all want with toning. They don't get bulky with it.
Mhm.
But I build programs based on the pain points of my clients. One of the better programs I have is the Breakdown Gym Intimidation program, where
You call
it
that, say that again? The
it's the
gym
it's the
intimidation.
Breakdown Gym Intimidation
Oh my
program.
god, I love
So,
that.
well, and I think for a lot of us, when you're 300 pounds or you're morbidly obese, you're
Yeah.
worried about people watching you. And, I work with a coaching program in my app where I embed the videos of the workouts for you so it looks like you're playing on the phone. But you can watch a video of a demonstration of how to do it. You can then record yourself, and I can give you the feedback and cue it. And by doing these basic movements, you just learn the rhythm of 3 months of this is how I get into the gym. This is what my routine looks like. This is how the programs progress. So that eventually you can either graduate from me, or I have a lot of clients who stay in my alumni program where I continue to program them. They don't have to do the one on one with me, but they want to stay in the group call and they want to stay as positive aspects. So,
Well, that makes a whole lot of sense to have an alumni program because it keeps people accountable.
yeah.
And I think when it comes to exercise and numerous other things,
Uh huh.
accountability is absolutely, well, it's proven. Research shows that when you have an accountability system, you are much more likely to continue in the thing, in the whatever the thing is you're trying to
Yeah.
establish.
And I think it plays a level when someone like not necessarily watching but cares about your results and wants to see your results, but also holds you accountable of like, hey, we said we were going to do this, what's going on. It does add a little bit of an extra edge to it that I think does really help drive my clients results.
You know the term transferable skills? Like if when people are trying to get a job and it's like, "Oh, I've only ever worked at McDonald's." It's like, I'm not qualified. Yeah, let's take your transferable skills. You're personable, you have to greet the public, you have to have a little bit of time management, whatever. So when you help people increase their self-efficacy or their belief that they can do something, what a great way for them to transfer this into other areas. If I can do this fitness thing, which has always been like, that is not for me. I could probably
Yes.
never, ever, right? And they find that they can do a dang pull up, for God's sake.
Hmm.
Think about the other things in life that, relative to exercise, must seem easy. It's like, wow, well, I guess if I can do this, I can try that and transfer this to there.
And I think that's a lot of the bariatric journey of what we go through. Like even with our nutrition and our tracking, is we're able to talk about macros and how to, prioritize your protein. And I'm able to look through my programs of what you're eating, and we can have that discussion to help guide them towards their goals. So it's one of those that, like, I always joke when people are like, "Hey, how did you get to win, like best men's fitness, or how did you end up doing a 75-mile bike ride across the state?" It's one of those, like, say, "Well, I started by just walking, like just walking 5,000 steps a day, and then saying after a month I'm going to go up to 6,000 steps." And one of the things I'm very proud of is I help my clients see the long game of, you're not playing a diet anymore. You're playing a lifestyle. And the more that my clients kind of get away, it's the weirdest thing ever. The less they focus on the scale and the more they work on the lifestyle, the quicker that scale starts to develop. So,
Preach, preach, preach. I could talk for a minute or several
mhm,
hours about that topic.
that's a whole like episode, book,
Oh,
series.
it is, but I'm so glad that you go there with your clients. How did you come up with the name Busy Bariatrics?
Because I'm too busy for any of this
I
stuff.
wondered. I wondered if
Yeah,
that was how.
yeah, when I started, I was literally teaching, everything I said before, like getting the kids in the car line, doing everything else. And it was one of those, like, the biggest question I always get really isn't necessarily the fitness routine. It's how do you fit all this in? So it's really just teaching my clients how to use a Google Calendar, how to be intentional with your time, how to start developing things. But my joke is, like, I'm always too busy for this. Like, almost every time I get invited to do things anymore, I kind of say no first off, because I'm like, I don't really have the time. But then I look at my calendar and I'm like, well, here's the 1 hour I have here or the 1 hour I have there. And it's phonetic. And I love phonetics. So it's Men's Support Monday, Wisdom Wednesday,
I
Busy
love it.
Bariatrics.
I
So,
love it. I love it. Well, I
yeah.
love that name because I have a daughter. I have two of them, but one of them's name's Erin. But when she was a kid, for whatever reason, I always called her Busy Bee. I always
Yep.
called her Busy Bee. So I love your Busy Bariatrics with your bee on there. Absolutely. So it's near and dear to my heart too. And yellow is my favorite color. So
Then,
one of
then I'm gonna have to send you a card and some merch, because
Yes,
we
you
got
have
a
to
whole
send
bunch
me
of
some
yellow
merch,
there.
dude, for sure. So I wanted to also tell you one of the things that just drew me to you, and it goes right along with that being genuine, is when we had that filming thing at my house and you were here and several other people, and we were on the way to the airport. And my grandson was with us, and he's 11. The kid adores baseball. He lives and breathes baseball. And you talked with him like man to man, not like man to child. You had a man to man conversation with that kid for a good 40 miles or
Yeah.
40 minutes at least, talking about baseball. And I'm like, this guy is amazing.
Well, and I think it goes to the teacher in me of, kids will act however you allow them to act, and kids will do whatever you expect them to do. And I feel that's the same way for the bariatric community. Like, if you just set the standard, you build a relationship, and people feel safe, it opens up for more conversation. And that it just comes down to, the more I know about people, the better everything goes. And it was a good car ride and talk. So,
Oh, that was so adorable. I was like, this man just steals my heart every time I'm with him. You're just a good, good man. Um, So it's interesting you're talking about you're a teacher,
Yeah.
and now in this busy bariatric life and your busy bariatric business, isn't it funny how some of that stuff you learned through teaching has just helped you so
Te-
much?
Teach Philly public and every other job will be easy by comparison. But, you know, I joke, but like I learned so much teaching in like Philly where it was like it really came down to you need to build relationships if you want to get results with anyone. And it was one of those things that like when I taught my first year, I had 3 preps. I didn't have a classroom. I had one of those rolling carts. And
What?
oh yeah, I didn't even have a classroom. I literally had my lunch, my laptop, and all the books that I needed to teach all on one rolling cart. And I had to go up and down the hallway, and I taught in a different classroom every
Get
period.
out of here. I've never heard of that.
Oh yeah, I was doing that. I coached football, bowling, and track while I was there. Yeah, yeah. Well,
Bowling?
yes, bowling. They didn't.
I
They
did
needed a bowling coach.
I
It
didn't know
was one of
bowling
those
had
things.
coaches.
I didn't know either until they paid me. But that's why one of my favorite phrases: "When the check clears, you'll get anything." So
You are funny.
every now and then, bariatrically funny. But
You always
no,
put
it comes down to like when you're working with anyone, like understanding where your students come from, or your patients, or your clients, or whatever. Like until they know you care, like they don't care what you know. And it's one of those things that the
say that
better
again.
you
Slow it down for a few words there.
I butchered it the first time. I'll do it again. It's nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Is the full quote.
Whoa, that's awesome. How have
The
I never
truth.
heard that?
The truth.
It's so true.
You know. So I look at it like when I was coaching football, it was one of those things of not only did I know the kids, but I'd know their family members. I'd wait to meet and see who picked them up, or I'd know what trains they took home if they had to take the train home. But
Wow.
it's when you build those relationships and they see you again, be consistent, like show up for practice every day on time, make them buckle a chin strap. We won a city championship in my second year of coaching, and it came down to the fact that we only had 24 kids to win a city championship. And it came down to like building relationships matter. And when people know how committed you are, they'll work harder for you.
Yeah, it's interesting in my profession, people will often say to me, "How do you get away with saying some of the things you say to your patients?"
Yeah,
Because I'm very direct, straightforward, and I'll be like,
I love it. You're my people for that.
"Yeah," and I'll say, "It's because they know I care."
Yeah,
And
it's the truth.
yeah,
If you don't have those critical conversations on things, you don't really get the results you want in your life or when you're coaching someone's life. But when you build a safe place that you can say those things, even when I taught Philly Public, other teachers would be like, "How do you get away with saying that?" It's like, because I've had 15 conversations before I tell them knock it
that's
off
right,
or stop being a
right,
dingling or anything else.
right.
So,
Yeah, I love that. And from a psychological perspective in the bariatric world, that development of relationships, to me, the development of a healthy relationship with yourself
mm-hmm.
is one of the key factors to long-term success. And building the discipline and, setting the boundaries with yourself and doing something like realizing you can enjoy movement and you can enjoy exercise. That is a huge hurdle. But when people do that, the way they feel about themselves improves so much. And I think that's one of the things that bariatric patients and all of us need to learn is that the more we appreciate and value and have a good relationship with ourselves, the better we're going to treat ourselves.
Yeah. And I think it comes down to like, you have to make the promise to yourself more than anyone else in this journey. But it's also like that means honoring your time and your commitments. So it's getting up a little bit earlier. It's saying no to maybe that holiday party, or saying like I am leaving the party at 9 so that I can be up at 5 and get a good night's rest.
You know, one of the people that you and I both respect and admire so much is Susan Mitchell, and she's got an
Yes.
amazing nutrition podcast for bariatric patients called Bariatric Surgery Success. But she and I were talking about the difference between motivation and commitment.
Yeah.
And you and I were just talking about commitment, and that's what keeps you going to get up early, what keeps you going to make the time for the exercise, the Zoom call with Rob, the sending Rob the video so that you can help them improve their, what do you call that? How they do it.
Habit building, growth,
Yeah, that.
hypertrophy, strength
Yes.
development,
All of that stuff,
self
right?
efficacy. We could keep going.
Yeah. So commitment is a word that's sometimes kind of like bleh, used so loosely, but commitment is what gets you doing the hard things when the going gets tough. The tough keep going because they have the commitment, and oftentimes it helps to have somebody on the other end.
Yeah.
Rob's made a commitment to me. I'm going to honor my commitment to him. So there's more on that accountability thing.
I think a lot of the times, like people say, like, well, how did you get into working out at 5 a.m.? And people don't realize I like kicked and screamed and cried for like 6 months. It took, like, in all seriousness, the first 6 months of working out at 5 a.m. are terrible. They're absolutely terrible. You're tired. You're drudging through, especially in New Jersey now. It's getting cold. Like it's cold. My bed is warm. I don't want to do this. Even some mornings today, I'd want to hit the snooze alarm, but it's because you build that consistency and that commitment to yourself. You develop the pattern. When I was at retreat, someone said, "Well, how do you start with that?" And I said, "Well, don't. How do you start going to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning?" And I said, "The first step is you don't go to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning. You go to the gym at a different part of your day, and you start to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning." And it's small things like that of like just waking up at 5 a.m. and getting your feet out of the bed and just walk around, go to the bathroom. I know like just go do
Sure.
a little bit to get out of bed. And slowly and surely, your body will allow you to go to sleep a little earlier. And then when you feel refreshed and rested, then you go to the gym at 5 a.m.
I agree completely. I am not a morning person,
Mm-hmm.
and that's my narrative, and I keep telling myself that. So that's been a block for one thing, but I am busy and I have, I run into these walls where I'm like, I don't have another hour. But if I would get my butt out of bed an hour earlier
Yeah,
and start my work day, I don't start my work day till 9.
that's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful
I'm
thing.
4 hours in my day by the time you start your work day.
Well, I've decided that I am going to start my workday at 8 because I need more hours later in the day. And so I have been getting up an hour earlier. And I'm telling you what, exactly. But this has happened in a matter of a couple of months. I've implemented several changes in my life in the last couple of months because I had a need for changing my schedule around a little bit. And it's just what I do.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things that one of my biggest inspirations is Jeremy Tyndall. He's Maddie's Daddy VSG on Instagram. I had him on a men's support
Oh,
Monday,
sweet name.
and I asked him, "How do you get up at 5 a.m. and work out every day?" And he had the most simplistic but beautiful answer ever. He said, "Life happens in the afternoon." And it was one of those things that, like, I was like, you know what, you're right. He's like, I have to show up for my daughter. I have to, he's a teacher himself. Like, I'm exhausted by the end of my day there.
I can imagine.
And and the nice part is, like, when you build it back, your body naturally starts to put you to bed at 9 o'clock, and really nothing good ever happens after 9 o'clock. So
Well, unless you're me, because I get a hell of a lot of work done after 9 o'clock.
my wife is the same, and it works out well.
Mhm.
Um, we both have a two different, I guess you'd say 9 a.m.s. But my wife is one of those people who she's good till like 1 o'clock in the morning and then
Me
gets up.
too. Me
So
too, man. My natural rhythm and life doesn't cooperate so well, but I would get up at 10 a.m. and go to bed at 2
yeah,
a.m. But no, that's not how it works. So, we do what we
but
got to do.
if it works for you and you're efficient with your time, it's really
Right.
following your rhythm and what works for you.
Yes, it is. But life happens during the day, and so I don't want to miss half of it. So I'm now getting up much earlier, and starting January, I sent out my schedule to my people who schedule my appointments. I'm like, yeah, I never thought this would happen, but start scheduling me at 8. So there you go. We can change, right?
I find whenever I open up time in my calendar, it somehow gets filled.
Yeah.
So it's one of those like I never know what to do with it myself.
So people like you and I who are very, very busy, very, very, we're going to get her done. It's hard for me and probably for you, I'm just guessing, when people say, I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time to meal plan. I don't have time. And when it really kills me is when I'm working, when I'm talking to somebody who's single, has no children, has a full-time job, but that's about it. And I'm like, oh boy.
I think a lot of the times we create these narratives of why we can't get things done. And I
Mhm.
always joke, the Italian in me comes in like, what rackets are you running? Like, how are you playing the shell game of like, I don't have time, money, and effort? But
Yes.
it's one of those things like I kind of teach my clients and I really get in of like, well, let me see your calendar. Why don't keep a calendar? Well, that's excuse number one is you don't have time because you're blowing it so well.
Yes.
And it's one of those like I know tracking can be triggering for people, but I joke tracking saved my life on multiple times.
Right.
I don't share enough of it, but like I was six figures in debt when I was 365 pounds because I would spend freely. I would say like I didn't want to
Mm,
know, but it was one of those things of like I didn't have the money because I was blowing it on whatever was right in front of me, and I was
mm,
taking short-term dopamine dumps over long-term gains, and it left me in six figures of credit card debt. So it
yeah.
was one of those of by tracking, getting clear on my money, it turns out I did have the money, but it's one of those when I talk to people who say like,
I
well, this
love that.
program's expensive. I say like, well, how much did you spend on Instacart or on fast food last month? And if the answer is I don't know, I'd say, well, maybe you need to start there and really look at where you're putting your money and efforts to get the results you want.
That's brilliant. And it is holding people accountable. What did you call it when you were like, how are you lying to yourself,
Oh,
basically?
the rackets that you run, like when you run a racket, it's like a shell game with the mob,
I love it.
But it's the truth. It's oh, I don't have any money. It's like, well, you're self sabotaging because you're spending like a drunken sailor and you're not putting it where you intentionally want it. And I know because I ran it. We go back to what we
Yeah,
said of sometimes the best people who help are the people who struggled the most with it. Like at my
exactly.
worst, I was six figures in debt, 365 pounds, and I was just going, down the wrong rails. But if I can do it through bariatric surgery, tracking, and making consistent small changes over time, I can show the way for almost anyone to do it if they're willing to be honest with themselves.
What came first? The reining in of the finances or the weight, or what was the order of that?
I'll give you everything. It was this weird thing of like August of 2019, my pulmonologist, because I'm on a CPAP machine, essentially said I was burning out a medical grade CPAP. And that I would essentially like just go to sleep and the CPAP wouldn't sustain me, and there was a chance that like that would be it. Um,
Wow.
when I went to start doing all the stuff for the bariatric surgery, I didn't know where my what would be covered by insurance, so I realized I kind of needed to free up some cash, but I was still playing credit card shell games, and it was one of those that I started Dave Ramsey's financial piece.
Awesome.
Um,
Good
I
for
know, right?
you.
Well, I started that. First class was March 10th, 2020. I got approved for bariatric surgery March 11th, 2020. and then the world shut down. So I had nothing else to do during COVID other than I couldn't eat fast food because we weren't going out and doing that. I couldn't, like go out and spend because we didn't really know what was going to happen with my job or Kate's job. But I was still taking these courses and tracking both my, data and everything else. I realized like I'm spending $750 a month in fast casual. So it was one of those things. Yeah. So it was one of those things like even just flipping that around. Yes, 750 a month in fast casual. And
What
that's
is
not like
fast casual?
Chipotle, pizza, like it's a
Oh,
little bit above fast food, but it's not really fast food.
oh.
But it's also like that's me not even taking my wife and kids out to
Did you
dinner.
say $750 a month?
$750 a month.
Hello, mortgage.
Well, New Jersey, it's a little higher than that, even
Yeah,
for
well,
my
maybe.
my little
Well,
abode.
I got you. It's my student loan payment, is what that is.
Yeah, but that's not. But again, same thing that started is I kept a little Star Wars piggy bank that my kids gave me,
Oh,
and I kept a budget of I'm keeping 750 cash, and when the 750 cash runs out, I'm not buying any more fast food. But every time I drove by and didn't get fast food, I would take $10 of that out and I would put it into the piggy bank. And I'm not telling you I did it perfect every month. Some months I made 650, other months I made 350.
that's
But
incredible.
yeah, I made my first home gym completely on the savings of not buying Taco Bell. So now I'm eating less, I'm moving more, and I'm saving money. And I'm really proud to say, like right now we're down to our last 28K of debt. It's a long journey, but like my car is paid off. We don't have any credit card debt.
That's
And
incredible. In that short amount of time?
yeah, since March 2022,
Congratulations, Rob.
yeah. I mean, you see me, I fly Spirit. So like I shamelessly save money wherever I can and take my chances when we get there. So
Dang, you turned your whole life around, buddy.
I did.
Yep.
Bariatric surgery saved my life in more ways than one. Like, and I can't stress that to anyone if you're still listening at this point. This is a life saving procedure. You need to treat it like a life changing procedure. The more you change your life, the better results you're going to get throughout this entire process.
Absolutely. And I feel the same way, and it feels so blessed that I got my butt into treatment for addiction at 29 years old,
Yeah.
right? I mean, y and like you, went all in and said,
Yeah.
"I want my life different." And
Yeah. It's,
the changes in our families and the whole trajectory. I mean, it's just amazing that anybody can do it.
yeah. It really comes down to, I say anybody can do it, but until they're willing to do it, they're not
Right.
going to do it. And
Exactly.
unfortunately for me, it was like we missed a mortgage payment like at our
Mhm.
worst time. Like I
Mhm.
would get calls from the credit card people like every hour on the hour,
Oh,
and
gosh.
it's a tough spot to be in.
It
But
is.
sometimes you got to hit rock bottom to go back up.
Absolutely, and you've gotta want this. You've gotta want
Hmm.
a new life, you've gotta want it, you've gotta immerse yourself in it, you've got to be willing to do what the people who have already been there before you recommend to you. You've gotta be willing to do the hard things like the money thing you did and go to
Yeah.
therapy like you do.
And you have to play the long game. Even with
Yeah.
bariatric surgery, when I talk to people who've had it or people who don't know anything about it, I remember I had a cousin who visited me 4 days after bariatric surgery and essentially was like, "You're still big," and I'm like, "It doesn't work that way." Like, yeah,
What?
uh huh. But that's like a whole nother issue to deal with on that. But yeah, like a lot of it at this point, like 3 years out, I don't know how much is actually the sleeve doing the work, but it's the habits, behaviors, and patterns that I built when I had full restriction that get me to where I am today.
And that is a topic you and I talk about a lot. There's a big speaking of duplicitous, here's a great working definition. People who walk the walk versus talk the talk, right? You talk the talk and walk the walk. I
Yeah.
talk the talk and walk the walk. But
Yeah.
some people just talk the talk.
And that's part of the process, and at the end of the day, like, you have to look at their lifestyle and see what you want and what you do. It's one of those things, like another phrase that I love from Eric Thomas is, everyone wants to be a beast until it's time to do what beasts do. And
Oh my God.
it comes down to, like, everyone wants the results they see of some of us, but then it comes down to, like, look, I can tell you exactly how to do it. I can tell you how you need to start and what you have to do day by day to get there. But, like, at the end of the day, you got to do the work.
Right.
It's not just meal planning. It's meal planning on, like, an Aldi budget, and coming in, like, at like $400 for a grocery budget for the month. Like, when people are like, "Why do you love Costco rotisserie chicken so much?" It's like, yeah, it's $4.99. It fits my budget and my macros, and I eat it every single week.
Oh, yum. It's so good too.
It is good. It
So
is
good and
good.
so good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to do the work. And that's why in the world of recovery, they say nobody can do it for you, but you can't do it alone.
Yeah. And it does take a group of people supporting you and
Mhm.
encouraging you and making sure everything's right to get those results that you
But
want.
at the end of the day, nobody's going to work out for you.
Nope. No
You
one's going
know,
to prep your meals either. Well, you
yeah,
can pay for that service
well,
these
that's
days,
true.
but
Yeah. I often wonder if I could figure out a way to exercise for people, but they got the results, think how wealthy we would be.
I'd be rich. I'd be rich.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It
We'd be
also,
recording this in the Bahamas, with our feet up after 2
that's
months.
right.
So
It also reminds me in the class that I teach, the Gain While You Lose class, one of my favorite slides, and I can't tell you who said this, but it's a quote that basically says, if you do what you're supposed to do every day, you're guaranteed results, right?
yeah,
If you eat the protein these many hours apart and you eat the fruits and the veggies and you minimize the highly processed foods and you exercise, you're guaranteed to be successful. But people jump, like you said, way down the road.
and I think that comes from all or nothing mindset. It's, we can all be good for 3, 4 days, but
Yeah,
then it's like, oh, the scale didn't move by Friday. Well, now I'm going to have some wine. I'm going to have some chips, or I'm going to get
right.
pizza. And it's one of those things you have to realize in your bariatric journey, in any part of life, you got to play the long game. And that
Yes.
takes a lot of work. Even at three
Yep.
years out, I still have to do the work. McDonald's French fries are still delicious. That never turned off for me.
Yeah.
It's the fact that I've said no more times than I've said yes over 3 years, that now it's just commonplace of, it's like, I can see food or smell food and be like, I don't need food.
Yeah. Every day, a day at a time, you made those choices.
Absolutely.
And that's why at this point in your journey, here you are,
Yeah.
helping others, doing what you need to do to get the results that you have gotten on a daily basis and reaching your hand out to help others.
No, I got a good mentor in you who really, like, sets the example of what it means to really, like, understand the struggle, but also to be more direct. And I think that's probably the best thing I've learned from you over the last year is, the better you get with being direct and clear with expectations, the better the results for everyone is. And some people may not like that, but
Right.
the right people who respond to that really thrive under that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why there's a whole bunch of different personalities so everybody can get help. The help is there for you. Find the person to help you.
Exactly.
Get what you need. So, when we started this, we were talking about the harshest person because Rob and I have recently had conversations about how how hard it can be if you start playing that social comparison game.
Yeah, we're
So,
54 minutes in and we're finally getting to the subject of this podcast. This is about how it works when you and me get together.
I know, but such great information, Rob. Such great information and helpful on all levels. But you and I have moments when we're very, very critical and very harsh with ourselves. And I think and this is probably true for most people, but I know that numbers trip me up.
Mm-hmm.
I have number issues with. I was anorexic for a lot of years. Those numbers tripped me up. And when I look at, and I rarely do it, but every once in a while, you're going to see your weight on the doctor scale, or you're going to see how many followers somebody has. And I'm like, I mean,
Yeah,
small little bitty fish. And you're like, but I can't do that. It just doesn't do anything helpful for me. And that can be extrapolated to do what works for you and stay away from the things that trigger you.
100%. I think, I got to stress, the only person, and I can only speak for myself, the harshest person that I've had in social media throughout my entire 3.5 years in my bariatric journey is me.
Yeah.
I've never, when I play the comparison game, I write these narratives in my head about people that they're better than me, they're more popular, they're richer, they're better looking. And although some of that might be slightly true, they've never made me feel that way. It's been me who's made me feel that way. And for a lot of the times when I work with clients, I have to sound like a broken record of you need to keep your blinders on. You
Yeah.
need to make sure that you are doing the work, but like none of those accounts care about you or trying to be mean to you. You're writing a racket in your own head that causes these issues.
That's so true. And that's where my experience as a therapist comes in handy with me. Because back in the day, if I got into one of those ruts and comparing myself in a negative way, it could be a long, miserable journey before I crawled out of that hole. Now I use the skills that I share with everybody else, right? Like, is that true? Does this really mean what I'm saying it means? No, they're not any better. They're not any whatever. They're not whatever. It means maybe they're putting more time and effort into that area of life than I am. It means I'm doing what I enjoy doing. And that's what this is about, helping others in a way that works for me. So I use the skills to balance my emotions and my logic so I don't go down an emotional, hole that lasts for a long time.
Yeah, it's one of those things like even when I go to events, I get FOMO when I see other people's photos at the event I'm at. Like how messed up is that of I get upset that I'm not in a photo at an event that I'm already at. And
Yeah,
like it's a tough mental game to play that I don't think we talk about enough. We don't share a lot because we share our highlight reels on social media. But
yeah,
in reality, it's I've been nothing but welcomed by everyone who I've met in the community. Hand to God.
absolutely.
I put up barriers myself because I think I'm not invited. And I did that when I was in high school. I did that when
Right.
I was in college. Like, this community is phenomenal, but the one person who holds me back from being fully present or not being myself or enjoying the event is me every single time.
Always, always, absolutely. And there's a lot of lessons in that. And I think it's really good for people to hear people like you and people like me.
Yeah.
We're out there. People are like, oh, they got it all together. Well, hell no.
Connie, you literally wrote the book on bariatric surgery. I know because I keep it on my shelf so I can recommend it to everyone when I talk to them about
Thank you.
mindset work and everything else. You're
Thank you.
like, if the person who has written the book on mindset of bariatric surgery has trouble with the comparison game, like, if you're still listening, we're 59 minutes in, if the best person in the community when it comes pound for pound on talking about being real, honest, and direct is telling you she struggles with the comparison game, that means it's okay that you
That's
struggle
right.
with the comparison game and everyone has it, but you do have to manage it. You
Right.
have to do the work and realize that it's stinking thinking and
Right.
you gotta do the head work around it.
And all humans are going to go there, but it's not somewhere I choose to live,
Yes.
right? Go
And I'm
there.
trying to get better, but
Yep.
I end up spending like a bad timeshare in that area.
Yeah.
So
And it gets less and less with more practice. And for me, it's avoiding looking at numbers. What they don't matter. They don't do me any good. They bring me down. So I stay away from it. What works
abs-
for you?
absolutely.
What works best for you to get out of that? And then
Oh,
we're
for
gonna
me,
wrap this up.
I still don't know. I still struggle with it. I still I go through everything and like I'll go to events even when we were at your house and like the 2 weeks after I do a bariatric event, I'm just in a weird headspace for whatever
Yeah.
reason. It's
Yeah.
I've ridden an emotional roller coaster of
Yeah.
highs and then I come off there and I hit a low, and then it's like, oh, I have a beautiful life. I have an amazing wife, two awesome children, a job that I love, and a coaching practice. I'm like, well, I'm not in San Antonio hanging out with everyone who thinks, like this is awesome, and like riding that roller coaster still is
Yeah.
a struggle. But
Yeah.
the best part I'm at in my stage is I at least am acknowledging that I'm on a ride, if
That's
that at
awesome.
least makes sense, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
finally identifying like that's the problem. And that I realize like, oh, I'm like low for 2 weeks after this. So I kind
Yeah.
of try to say nothing too rash or do anything too crazy
Right.
for the 2 weeks after all these in-person events.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you see the movie um, Parenthood with Steve Martin?
Yes.
Great movie. And remember the old grandma? And she
Mm-hmm.
talks about the roller coaster and how
Oh
you
yeah.
can live life on the merry-go-round and it just goes round and round. But the roller coaster is so much fun.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
trust me, I'm on the roller coaster.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
been a roller coaster of a year.
Well, you're a great, great guy. And I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing in your busy bariatric world because you're helping so many people, not just with your coaching, but just with your presence and your availability to people. And I so appreciate you being part of the bariatric care program and reaching out to men through that too.
Well, I got to thank you because weight loss surgery does not cure your addiction to food. Got me through the first year, and I
Oh, so
still
glad.
tell the story constantly of I knew I needed help when I was 5 months post op, and I tried to eat a Whopper, and I still lost 5 pounds, and I went into this nasty game of how much fast food could I eat while still losing weight. And if your book wasn't recommended to me, I don't think I'd be where I was today. So, literally, thank you for writing the book that saved my life.
Well, thank you for doing the work it took. All
It's a
right,
good
dude.
deal.
I hope that I get to see you soon and keep doing what you're doing, and we'll just reach out our hand to one person at a time.
Thank you for being a friend. They should write
Oh,
a song
ditto.
about it, you know?
Yes, they should. Thanks for always making me laugh, Rob.
Hey, thanks for always being in
You're
my
a good
corner.
friend. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon. And I know people listen to the end of this episode because why would you not?
Hey, if you're still listening, message me on Instagram at my weight is history.
Yeah.
Put roller coaster. Let's
Oh,
see
there
who
we
actually
go.
is going to the end. Let's see if anyone puts roller coaster.
I love that. You let me know, okay?
I will.
Thanks so much. Get to bed.
I am. Good night,
Good night.
everybody.